Being a full-time photographer is a dream job for many people, but more often than not, there seems to be two things to prevent them from making this dream a reality, and maybe you're even one of those people. Those two things tend to be, firstly, the belief that photography is just way too expensive to even get started with, and even if you could afford it, you have no idea how to gain paying clients to support you financially. Well, good news, today we're going to punch those fears right in the dick, because I'm going to share with you a way of starting your very own photography business here in 2025 with just a budget of $400. No, not $400 per month, not $400 per piece of equipment. I'm talking about spending $400 total to gain all of the essentials you need to start taking professional quality photos that clients will actually want to pay for. And off the back of that, the ability to gain repeat clients to grow your business and turn this into your full-time employment. So why should you trust me and any advice that I have to give, and how do you know this will even work? Well, 15 years ago, I did a very similar thing, adopting many of the strategies that I'm going to be sharing with you today. With just a single camera and a lens, I built a successful wedding company that generated a consistent income for years, well, until last year when I decided to sell off everything and move my life to Canada, but this video is not about my midlife crisis, okay? But if that wasn't enough of a resume for you, then I've also managed to build a UK-based media company which has repeat clients, employs multiple creatives full-time, and generates a yearly six-figure turnover. Now, I'm not saying any of that as a flex. I'm simply trying to demonstrate that if a total moron like me can do it twice, then there's absolutely no reason why it can't become your own reality too, if that's what you really want from life. Anyway, let's get straight into it and start with step one, and that's buying your first camera. Now, if you happen to already own a camera and maybe a few lenses, then feel free to skip ahead to step 3 of this video using the chapter markers on the timeline thing, but for everyone else, this is usually the bit that causes the most amount of anxiety. The fear usually is that you're going to sink your money into the wrong camera or the wrong camera system, and then you'll be stuck with a piece of shit that you hate using and you just take terrible photos. Well, don't worry, because I have reviewed a lot of cheap cameras on this channel over the years, so at this point I have a fairly good understanding of which options are lemons and which ones can be made into lemonade. Not literally, of course. Now, in my opinion, the best bang for your buck is always going to be found in the used camera market. Right away, let's get the idea of buying a brand new shiny camera out of your head for good, because you really don't need the latest all singing and dancing model to get you off the ground. Instead, I'm going to recommend that you look for an older Sony mirrorless camera for 3 reasons. Firstly, because of their low price, obviously. Sony has been pretty much the dominating force in the mirrorless camera market right from the very start, and so this means that they have an extensive back catalogue of APS-C cameras to pick from, most of which are very affordable and still very capable. Secondly, all Sony mirrorless cameras use the exact same lens mount called the Sony E-mount, and essentially this means that if you eventually want to upgrade to a newer camera in the future, if you stick with Sony, you can still keep using all of the existing lenses that you've bought over time, and this will hopefully save you a ton of money down the line. Finally, Sony creates both APS-C and full-frame cameras, so you're very much future-proofed when it comes to upgrading later on down the line, should you choose to. Now, granted, earlier models from Sony may not look as sexy as some of the newer stuff, but we're not looking for marriage material here. We're just trying to find a starter camera that can take a good picture and won't break the bank. And as my mother has told me repeatedly over the years, don't worry that your face looks like a necrotic nutsack, it's what's on the inside that counts. Honestly, she really does have a way with words, that woman. So what camera model specifically should you be looking for? Well, I've been checking prices on sites like eBay, Buy and MPB recently, and I found that you can pick up something from the original Sony NEX series for well within our $400 budget. In fact, models like the NEX3, NEX5, NEX6, or even a Sony A5000 can usually be found around the $200 mark in good condition. But to make your life way easier, I'm going to pin a comment below with my top pick of camera models to look out for, and also some links to websites where I frequently find good bargains. Now, while some of these cameras might be hitting double digits in terms of their age, digital cameras really haven't changed all that much in the last decade or so when it comes to image quality. Sure, the new ones have fancier features, better autofocus, and higher megapixel counts, but most of the older Sony cameras still shoot clean 16 to 24 megapixel images, which will be more than enough for most client work. So with around $200 set aside for your camera body, that leaves us with around $200 for the next essential item, the lens. Now, a lot of people tend to think that to start with, they need to buy some kind of zoom lens in order to be really versatile and agile, but here's the problem. Affordable zoom lenses are usually pretty slow, and I'm not talking in terms of autofocus, but meaning that they have a relatively small maximum aperture, usually something like f3.5 to 5.6. And this can severely limit your ability to get that shallow depth of field effect or the blurry background that's kind of synonymous with professional photography. Now, lots of people online will tell you that you shouldn't always shoot every photo with a super blurred background, which is true to an extent, but I can categorically tell you that after 15 years of dealing with numerous clients, this is still very much the look that most people associate with professional looking photos. So rather than worrying about the opinions of keyboard warriors, my attitude has always been just give the people what they want. In which case, buying a cheap, fast prime lens with a much wider maximum aperture will allow you to do this from day one and will immediately make your photos appear more professional looking. Fake it till you make it, right? Now, the only drawback, of course, is going to be that opting for a prime lens over a zoom will mean that you are locked into a single, very specific focal length. And that means that you'll need to make sure that you get the right focal length to suit you and the job at hand. Get a lens that's too long or too wide, and it will make your life a whole lot harder. Now, as a general rule of thumb, a focal length somewhere between 35 and 50 millimeters will be suitable for most types of work, whether that's portraits, family shoots, weddings, events, car photography, corporate content, honestly, you name it. But there are some exceptions, of course. For architectural photography, landscapes and real estate, you may need to consider getting something a little bit wider. And for wildlife and sports, you'll need something on the other end of the spectrum that's a lot longer than this. Now, unfortunately, in those cases, wide-angle lenses and telephoto lenses tend to be much more expensive. And so getting a lens with this kind of field of view most likely won't be achievable within this tight budget that we've set, so you will need to potentially save some more pennies, soz. But before I can move on to suggesting some specific brands and lenses that I would recommend checking out, we do need to first quickly cover something called crop factor. But don't worry, I promise I'll try and keep this as short and painless as possible. If you already know about this, feel free to skip ahead. Now, in a nutshell, APS-C sensors have smaller... Hang on, I'll get one. APS-C sensors are smaller in size than full frame sensors. Hang on, I'm gonna have to juggle cameras here. There we go. And because of that, they kind of crop the image compared to what a full frame sensor would capture. And this is also why APS-C cameras are sometimes referred to as crop sensor cameras. Now, what this means is that any lens that you slap on an APS-C camera will appear to be more zoomed in than it would do on a full frame camera. So you can't always take what it says on the lens barrel as face value. Now, Sony APS-C cameras have a 1.5 times crop factor. So in order to work out what the field of view of the final image will actually look like, we first need to multiply the focal length by 1.5. So why is this important? Well, if you decide you want to capture images with a 50mm field of view, for example, then buying a 50mm lens for your APS-C camera will actually behave more like a 75mm lens because of the crop. So instead, you'll actually need to look at getting something like a 33 or 35mm lens in order to get closer to a true 50mm field of view. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, now that we've cleared all of that up, for our budget, I would recommend looking at lenses made by two manufacturers, TTArtisan or Viltrox. Why? Well, before you ask, no, it's not because they've paid me to say that. It's just that I've tested a lot of cheap lenses over the years, and these two companies offer a range of very cheap, fully autofocus lenses that have pretty good image quality for the price. price. Plus, they're compatible with Sony E-mount cameras. But rather than going through every single lens that I can recommend, I will instead leave a list of all of the lenses that I've personally tested and would recommend in either the video description or a pinned comment somewhere down here, with the crop factor already worked out for you. What a guy.
Thank you very much.
Either way, the options that I'll suggest will be priced below the $200 we have remaining in our budget, which means you should have some change left over for a memory card or two, and now you're pretty much up and running. What next? Well, you need to get your first clients, obviously, but don't worry, this is much easier than people probably think. For now, don't waste your time making a fancy website, business cards, or any of that professional looking crap. All of that will come in time. For now, what you do need is a portfolio of images to show potential clients what you're capable of. And since you're just starting out, you probably don't have that yet, so go out and shoot something. Photograph your friends, your family, your neighbor's dog, random strangers on the street. Just don't be a creep if you can help it. Shoot landscapes, cars, bikes, household products, architecture, home interiors, whatever type of photography you're potentially interested in pursuing, or not even interested in for that matter. Because at this point, we're trying to figure out two things. Number one, what do you actually enjoy shooting? And the only way you can answer that question is just to try your hand at as many different things as possible. And two, what comes most naturally to you and garners the best reaction from other people who see your photos? For instance, you might find out that you have a particular talent for working with people, in which case wedding and family photography might be a lucrative path to follow. Alternatively, you might just hate people and prefer the solace of a studio space or empty house, in which case maybe real estate or product photography could be your calling. That said, whilst it's important that you find a subject that you love to photograph, if you want this to be your full-time job, you also need to consider which options actually pay. Shooting macro photos of bugs might be your true passion in life, but making a living from that is going to be pretty tough. So you could just be setting yourself up to fail if that's all you focus on. So maybe just keep that as your hobby and have your own enjoyment from that, but then also focus on another type of photography that you can actually monetize and support yourself with. Anyway, after you've figured all of that out, the next step is consistency. You need to be shooting regularly and posting your work on social media. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, you pick your poison. Just make sure you're active on at least one or two platforms. A well-curated Instagram profile functions perfectly well as your portfolio, and it's totally free. Plus, people are more likely to stumble across you on social media than they are to randomly find your website on a Google search. The key, though, is to post as much as you possibly can, every day if possible, though know your limits and don't overburden yourself this early on. Something is always better than nothing. But when I say post every day, I don't mean just dump your photos and run. You need to engage with the community, use relevant hashtags, and actually talk to people who comment on your work.
He's right, you know.
Now, if creating high quality promotional content for your socials feels like a bit of a struggle, then today's sponsor, Wondershare Filmora 14, might be exactly what you need. One of the standout new features is AI-powered audio to video. This lets you take a simple voiceover or commentary and automatically turns it into a fully edited video. Filmora handles all of the visuals, syncs everything to your audio, adds transitions, and even generates captions, so you don't have to spend hours in the editing timeline. But what happens if you don't have a voiceover yet? Well, no problem, because Filmora 14 also includes a built-in text-to-speech tool. Just type out your script and it'll instantly convert it into a natural-sounding voiceover using AI. This makes it perfect for quick edits, explainer videos, or when you just want to get your ideas out there fast, without the need to record anything. So whether you're showcasing your latest shoot or creating behind-the-scenes content, Filmora can help you do it all quickly, easily, and professionally. Be sure to check out Wondershare Filmora 14 using the link in the description below, and a big thank you to them for sponsoring this video and helping to support this channel. Anyway, another thing, don't be afraid to offer free sessions at first. And I know working for free sounds like a terrible business strategy, but hear me out on this one. When you're starting out with zero reputation and zero testimonials, offering free sessions to a few select people can help you build both very quickly. Just make sure you're offering these free sessions to people who are active on social media themselves and who are likely to share your work to help promote your services. And I know it's a slightly horrible thing to say, but prioritizing free shoots to people who are naturally photogenic over just your friends and family members will instantly make your photos more appealing to look at. The same can be said for car photography, real estate, or product photography. If the subject is nice enough to look at, people will naturally be drawn into it and it will bring up the quality of your work. Remember, we're all essentially just a bunch of monkeys who are attracted to nice looking things, so give the people what they want. The final step here is to also set up a free email account specifically for your photography business, and also make it very easy for them to find so that they know how to get in contact with you. Having a separate email address will not only make things way more organized for you, but it also costs absolutely nothing, takes a few minutes to set up, and ultimately looks way more professional than your personal doglover69@hotmail.com email. So you've shot your first set of images, so let's talk about editing now. Broadly speaking, Adobe Lightroom is the most common choice, but $11.99 a month is something you really don't need to be shelling out for right this second. Luckily, there are plenty of free alternatives that work just as well. Programs like Raw Therapy, Darktable, or even GIMP can handle basic editing tasks without costing you a penny. I actually made a whole other video about free and cheap Lightroom alternatives a few weeks ago, so feel free to open this link up here into a new tab and watch it after we're done here if you need more guidance. Now, if you're completely new to editing, you're also going to have to start investing some time into learning the basics about photo editing, and luckily YouTube is full of free tutorials that can help you get started. Now, it's okay if you're not an expert overnight. Everything takes time with learning a new profession, so just as long as you are actively trying to improve your skills each week little by little, that should be enough. But if you have any remaining budget left, getting your hands on a few presets can also be a huge time saver when you're learning to edit. Presets basically allow you to shortcut a lot of the complicated color grading work and give you a solid starting point that you can then tweak to suit your specific images. And hey, wouldn't you know, I just so happen to sell presets on my website that are pretty damn good if I say so myself. Seriously, what are the chances? For just a single payment of $24.99, you'll gain access to my cutting edge preset pack, so you too can have the magic formula to make your photos pop with minimal effort. Buy now and transform your photography overnight. Presets will not fix totally dogshit photos. Terms and conditions apply. All sales are final. But seriously, I do appreciate I am a little bit biased here, but presets genuinely can be helpful whether you get them from me or somewhere else entirely. Just don't rely on them entirely as a crutch. Take the time to actually learn why the adjustments work and how you can tailor them to your specific photos. Now, the final step is perhaps the most important one of all. Just keep going. Building a photography business takes time. There's really no shortcutting it. You're not going to book a $3,000 wedding in your first week. Hell, you might not even book anything for a couple of months, but that's totally normal. Just keep shooting, keep posting, keep engaging with your potential clients, and eventually you will notice that things start to snowball. But when you do start to make money, please be smart with how you reinvest it. You really don't need to immediately upgrade to a $4,000 camera body just because you can. Instead, consider investing in the following. Firstly, there's education. Online courses, workshops, or books will all help to improve your skills and will actually make you a better photographer, not a big expensive camera. Next, you could always get some better lenses because these will make a bigger difference to image quality than a new camera body will. Now, that's because the lens that you put in front of the camera will often have a much bigger impact on the resulting images than the camera itself. As the old adage goes, 2 in the pink, 1 in... hang on, that's not the right one, is it? You date your camera, but you marry your lenses, that's it. Basically meaning that you should view your lenses as the long-term investment and not the camera, because that can be replaced at any point. And access to a greater range of focal lengths will allow you to try out new compositions and styles. After all of that, then maybe it's time to upgrade the camera, but not because it'll make you a better photographer, but having better quality of life features like faster and more accurate autofocus, AI tracking, and image stabilization will actually free up some of your brain power and allow you to focus more on the shots that you're trying to capture rather than constantly wrestling with an old camera. But only upgrade your camera when it's actually limiting you in some specific way, not just because a newer, shinier model has just been released. Remember, gear acquisition syndrome is a real thing, and it's the fastest way to drain your bank account. So I've heard. And plus, remember, no client has ever hired a photographer because they use a very specific camera model. They hire the photographer who is able to capture images that they love. It really is that simple. So if you've been sitting on the fence about starting your own photography business because you thought you couldn't afford it or you didn't quite know how, well, now you got no excuse. The only thing standing between you and a successful photography business is taking that first step. Good luck.